week before Thanksgiving.
I know. Can you believe it?
Mm-mm.
Here we are.
Do you guys
November.
like Thanksgiving?
It's okay. I get to go to my mother-in-law's and she makes all the food.
I was going to say something similar, except that this year my person that makes Thanksgiving is not making Thanksgiving. So I have to make it. And that is stressing me out quite a bit.
I bet.
Yeah.
I definitely see that.
I've done a lot of writing of like I've written out all the recipes that we're gonna use and I've divvied up. I'm not making everything. I'm just making the core, the turkey, the stuffing, and the potatoes. And I'm making my children each help with a meal, or I mean with a dish. Um,
You're
but I
making them help. How's that gonna go?
I don't know. Hopefully not like it went when I was a kid and my mom would ask for help and no one would help. And then she would start, getting into the wine at around 1. And by 3:30, she'd be screaming. And then we'd sit down to Thanksgiving dinner. Hopefully it's not going to be like that.
And you were so grateful, weren't you?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I have as many like bad Thanksgiving memories as I do good Thanksgiving memories. But I still think of Thanksgiving as like an important holiday, even if it's, basically the time they sat down before we, killed all the Native Americans and took away their land. But other than that, it's a great holiday.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a nice time to truly reflect on what are we thankful for? And
Yeah, I think that when we look at it, when we focus on that piece of it, right? Like
yeah.
I think it can be really, really positive. I'll tell you just one really funny time when I came back from college and I'm the oldest. And my siblings decided to play the game, Raise Your Hand If You're Still a Virgin at the Thanksgiving dinner table.
Oh,
No, no, no.
Mhm.
And you didn't lie?
Gosh, Kate, why didn't that occur to me at the time? Yeah. So what are your best tips for coping with holiday gatherings?
So I've had a variety of different types of holidays, types of Thanksgiving. So growing up, my grandmother's birthday was usually 2 days. I mean, because it changes, right? I remember being 2 days after Thanksgiving and my mother's being 2 days before. So of course that shifted, but they were always like the 27th and the 25th or something like that. Um, and so there was always like an extra cake.
mm.
And then my mother, for a lot of the years that I can remember, she was either a waitress or both, or she was um, the guide cars with the lights on them for that's weird. We've never heard that phone ring. The guide cars for the oversized loads. So we would oftentimes either have someone who wasn't affiliated with anybody in town where she waitressed. We would have them come over, or we would have a random few truck drivers that would come over. So it would always be a big thing, and there would always be a couple of random folks. But one of the reasons that I wanted to have this conversation with you guys was, with you ladies, was because I know that stress around the holidays peaks. It's something like 68% of people report, and this is from like the National Association of Mental Wellness website, 68% of people report having anxiety or stress heightened during the holidays, either in association with being isolated or the financial stress of it all or the family stress of it all. And I thought it would be really timely just to kind of dive in on what some strategies are to go through and get through it.
Yeah. That's great. I
Say
think
that
that
phone, sorry, Gwen, that phone was like the 1980s we're calling. That ring.
Well, I haven't had a landline in like at least 10 years, but the condo requires a landline for safety because we have a lot of Canadian guests. And so I don't know who was calling us. Hopefully no one important.
And to add to it, there's like a filmy quality to your camera.
Trying to find a good light.
And so it's almost like you're attending this call from the 80s. Which is perfect because that's when like all my formative holiday experiences are from the 80s. So this is really perfect. Back to you, Gwen.
I don't know, how do you follow that? So as I think about family events and stresses and holidays, what I've had to work on with myself is not just gearing up and bracing and then going through it, because we go through it at least once a year and just head down. Instead, take a moment to prepare. I mean, mentally prepare that, especially for any of us who are gathering back together with family or old friends after a pandemic we might have not seen in person for a while or rarely. And just admit that we're human and we're going to be triggered. We're going to be triggered by stuff. It's just part of it. And somehow I always feel like I've been teleported back to when I'm 13 or 16, when I enter these spaces. And I think we just have to, prepare for that and talk up to ourselves, honestly. How are we going to, when we feel that, or that desire to just go irate a little bit or go off to a different room, recognize I'm a completely different person than I was back then. And can't I give these people a little credit that they're probably a little bit different too? And if they say something, I saw a post yesterday that said, when kids get to that stage, little kids, when things don't feel good, they don't say, oh my gosh, let's go figure this out. Oh my gosh, let's dissect what's really going on here. Or let's have a deep conversation about what we both think. Instead, they go, hey, you want to go play? And so I'm thinking maybe I should just get prepared for some games, some light stuff, some activities that might not be about debating politics or debating anything or going down memory lane and bringing up all the old garbage, distracting everybody a little bit. So that's what I'm thinking about doing this year.
I like that.
Yeah. Thanksgiving is not the time to correct Uncle Joe on his views about whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Or to bring up like whatever your, you said getting triggered when. Like when we're in our family systems, of course that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But we don't have to take the bait.
Right.
We don't. And actually a coach friend of mine was talking about a strategy she's planning to use next week with her family members that she has fraught relationship with, that she's going to imagine in terms of conversation that they're just passing a red ball back and forth, and it can't get no conversation can get deeper than I'm passing you a red ball, you're passing me a red ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's a good strategy. I think the other thing for me is to remember that how I act, how I behave, and the tone that I set is so much more important for the day than how the food turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that goes to mindset, like how you show up from a mindset perspective of it's not important if the turkey's perfect. It's more important that people are here and you know, they're here and experiencing the time together. I was going to say happy, but that you don't have control over that.
No, it's about the environment or the experience. And I don't mean environment, is your house clean? It's how do people feel when they're around you, and that they're going to feel much better if you're calm and collected and affable and don't care, honestly, about all the details.
Yeah. And if I resist that 10 a.m. mimosa that I know is going to sound good after I get the turkey dry brined or whatever that is, apparently you're supposed to do that. I don't know.
And you can make it super easy and not cook anything and order, stuff in. I think part of this is we lump so much on us. It's hard to be light and affable when you're feeling heavy. So what can you take off the list, or how do you start your list at the beginning of the day with what you're doing well or what you already have done, and give yourself a little bit of credit for all this that's already accomplished and you're feeling good about, to keep yourself in that positive space.
I used to when, gosh, I was probably in my 30s. The families at that point in time had kind of broken up a little bit. Stepdads were out of the picture. I don't think my mother was married at the time. I think I maybe was. And I input a new tradition of I'm going to go volunteer on Thanksgiving Day in the morning and then come back home. And my mother and my then husband at the time would cook a non-traditional Thanksgiving dinner. So I think we had bruschetta and like super easy stuff that wasn't so big. Because one of the things that I got overwhelmed with was the 3 different pies, because so and so likes pumpkin and so likes apple, and then we had to have the birthday cake, and the cherry was somehow in there as well, and everybody had their own side dish that my mother would like to cook, and she did it all. I remember looking at the table at one point in time and I was like, we could feed 5 families with all of this. And I just got overwhelmed with all the excess, that when it was time or when there was an opportunity, I pulled way back on that. And that was nice. So there was like a hike, there was a volunteer, there was a light lunch or whatever. And that felt good as a personal Thanksgiving tradition. Mm-hmm. So I'm reading this great book. It's about boundaries. And it is by Nidra Tawwab. I hope I got that right. And one of the things that she has is, this is just in general, like, hey, my family is going to spend the actual holiday at our house. We're going to come see you the week before. And I like that idea of, there's so many assumptions around the holidays. Oh, you have to do this. You have to have it all. You have to, whatever. And I like the idea of redefining what you have to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Redefining the shoulds of the holiday season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You made me think of one other thing too. Like, I think it can be feast or famine for people. What, like, we've talked a lot about those gatherings where it could be fraught and there's conversations you're trying to avoid, and you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself to deliver the most amazing meal or gifts, right? That's another source of stress. The other end of that spectrum is the people who are by themselves. And so I think another thing that we can do, I'm thinking about my dad's going to be by himself because my stepmom is back in Russia. And so, like, who are those people that we know might need some care and feeding remotely, and building that into the day? I think is really a good step, both to give ourselves perspective and to make sure that, to the extent that we can impact somebody else's experience of the holiday, for the better, that we do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, isolation is really bad during Thanksgiving and Christmas in particular. So what can we do to, you know, I just remember my mother being so generous with, sure, we can find another card table and stack it up against the one that's already there and find some new chairs. And, you know, I remember like going over to the neighbor's house and being like, my mom says I'm supposed to pick up chairs. Just because we had, you know, an extra person who she found out was not having a holiday. And she was like, well, come on over. And just how generous that was.
Mhm.
We grew up really poor and we didn't have a lot, but what we did have, we shared.
Mhm. And again, that's really what this is about, right?
Mm-hmm.
The gifts, Liz, you mentioned the gifts, and honestly, it doesn't matter if it's Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever religion, there's always generally some sort of gift. And what I've again started to think about is what I always tell my kids is I don't want you to go out and buy anything. I would much rather you make something, even if it's just writing a little letter. And so, what I've been telling clients, and I'm thinking about doing again myself this year, honestly, is forget the gifts, at least as the main event, and spend some time writing letters to the parents or even to your kids about what you appreciate about them. Or do that and download some pictures, some snapshots from the year or from you know the years past, and put them in a box. Take a few and get them framed and write a little note on the back, then date it. Things that truly are meaningful that you can spiff up and add to. But gosh, you know, who of our families really needs one more thing? And
Yeah.
the clients that I'm working with those kinds of ideas on generally do still have younger kids. And then that kind of sparks well, wouldn't that be cool to make those things with my kids for the grandparents or for the aunts or for the uncles and teach my kids what it means about giving and thinking ahead and what's really meaningful. So I just want to throw that out there. And then, you know, lastly, when I think about pass the gifts, people then get all worked up about gift wrap. So a little tip I have is I go to Party City and they've got these really long rolls of plastic paper that are supposed to be for tablecloths. I get them in different colors. And then when I have a gift, I just take the thing in a box or even not, and just take the paper and like pull it up and tie a ribbon around it and put a little note on it. You don't have to spend all that time boxing and packaging or going out and buying this gift wrap, which no matter where you go to find the lowest cost is super expensive. But just bundling stuff up in paper and tying a ribbon around it is perfectly fine. So what ideas do you have about gifts or gift wrapping?
We're trying to do, I've failed many years more than I've succeeded, but trying to do experiences over things. So, and actually, Gwen, you were one of the people that influenced me in this way because you take your family on trips around the holiday, and that is a big part of their gift. And so I've been trying to do that more than stuff. It's hard though. You mentioned people having small kids. My little kid she wants crap. She wants plastic toys. And my teenagers think that they have no clothes. But you can't shop for them because I have horrible taste and could never in a million years pick something appropriate for them. So that feels definitely like a catch-22 that's stressing me out. But I do make calendars on Shutterfly for all of the grandparents using exactly the concept you shared of pictures from the year. So I'll definitely do that again. Yeah, those are my
Makes
tips.
a note to herself to do it.
I literally did. Okay, what are your tips, Kate?
So our Christmas is now coinciding with the family reunion on my husband's side. So there are 20 one of us that will convene in Vermont this year, all in the same house. And we're doing a Secret Santa. And so last year we did the Secret Santa, but because of COVID, we couldn't take the trip. So we're trying to redo that trip. And and so there's electronic ways now that you can use to, everyone signs up and then it electronically matches, and you can do little wish lists or whatever to help people out. And so I like that idea because it cuts down on the cost, but it also makes it somewhat festive. And then the other thing I like to do is try to make it something thoughtful. So my husband's the worst person to buy from by far. He has, anything he wants, he can go get, and often doesn't wait. But my gift idea for him this year is a bread lame, because he makes bread weekly out of his sourdough starter, his whole wheat sourdough starter. And he currently takes my my unpacking knife, like the one I use to take, to open Amazon packages and whatnot. He takes that knife, and I have gotten to clean this knife frequently now, but he'll take that knife and slash the bread. And it's not the best knife. So for like $6.99, I'm getting him a lame that he can use on his bread. And
That's
it's something
so sweet.
He'll use it every week. He'll think of me, and I won't have to wash the package knife all the time.
That's so cool. I know we're at time, but I just want to leave you guys with my favorite holiday jingle that whenever things start to get tense, I sing in my head. It's "Leave me alone, please go away. I'm really sad. You're really lame. Please don't touch me."
Nice.
Bravo. That is a great way to conclude this conversation.
Agree.
A gift to everyone.
Thank you so much, you guys. This is
Thanks,
wonderful.
Liz.
Happy
Thanks, Kate. Happy holidays.